Big week. Big week. We're getting consistent moves flowing through, including over the past 24 hours. It's not the world's biggest names, but they're names that are going to be impactful, especially in the bullpen. So we're about to get into that. I do still think that we will have some major moves in the pipe over the next few days. I think one or two big boy free agents, like on the top 10, could sign before the holidays. And then Todd Father, we have a bunch of posting deadlines. So there's no signing deadline for anyone except the Japanese talent or international talent in general, I should say, with a posting fee. If you're tied to a posting fee, you have a window to do something. And Murakami, for example, has to sign by Monday night. So I think that one will go down, and that will be interesting to see where he ends up. I think the market is funky. We went over it the other day, but also for Murakami, I think that he could end up on a variety of clubs. We often see the Japanese players coming over to the same place, like LA and a few others in contention. You know, for a while it was Seattle. Now, you know, New York, the Mets have gotten Senga, the Cubs have gotten Seiya Suzuki and Managa, but I think Murakami could end up in a kind of more random market that doesn't usually recruit Japanese talent as much.
Let me ask you this question. I always find it amazing. Well, not a question. I'll ask you after. But I always find it amazing how the numbers seem to always be around the same. Like somebody wants for these Japanese talent, like somebody has to talk because you're not going to get a team that comes in that says 3 years, 20 million. And then you got 10 teams that say 5 years, 115 million. Like how does it always come around the same? Like, oh, well, you know, the Yankees didn't get him. They were about $1 million off. And it seems like they're all really so close to the price payment. So that's one question I would love to ask owners and everybody else. But yeah, this is.
I can answer it for you.
Go ahead.
What do you got? Well, because this is interesting. This is going to play right into our first topic coming up in a moment. But you'll see two players sign within minutes and get the same offer. And you can look at it innocently and say, well, they just saw that signing. They took it to teams and said, we'll sign for the same thing. Or you could flip it and say the teams called and all offered the same thing. We have had many players on this show appear and say they get calls at the same time with the same rates. Technically, that's that's happened to you. Wait, tell me the story real quick, and then we'll get into these signings. This is most relevant.
I forget what year it was. And then I think I signed with the Rangers. It was either the Rangers or the Rangers year. But two teams came to me within a day or two and said like it was like 1 year, $3 million, and then my agent calls me up. You're not gonna believe this. This team said the same thing. I'm like, oh, weird. I'm like, people are talking, I guess. So yeah, that's basically what happened.
You know what's funny, Todd, is they're actually not allowed to talk. There's a word for that. It's called collusion. You're not allowed to call other teams and say, hey, let's all offer this guy the same thing. There have been cases and settlements and everything, right? But C-League oversaw that at one point. It's really Kratz's favorite thing. Kratz loves when players all get phone calls with the same offer at the same time.
It irritates me. And I would love it if your number was like 3.15 million and they both offered the exact same number. Because I've heard countless, going all the way back to 2012, where my buddy got offered 2 years, $1.9 million. The same afternoon from two teams, completely different points in their, both playoff contending teams, but one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. Come on, $1.9 million for 2 years, call in the same afternoon, and we're supposed to sit back and say, well, we're investigating collusion. Stop. They don't even have to call each other anymore because we just talked about it yesterday. They're centralizing all of the data. Well, that's easy. Centralize it and just plug in the number that you want to pay for the guy. And that's an easy way to lower everybody's value. You're never going to figure it out for the superstars, but who cares? That doesn't cost teams a lot. It's the 85% of the guys that they pay, like Todd Frazier, $3 million. If they can lower that by $500,000, they're saving millions.
And hey, this is the stuff that no other show talks about. Or maybe some do and I'm missing them. but I just think it's an important piece of the puzzle. I mean, Todd Father, there's a lot of former players that are on this show. There's no doubt about that, although we do have former GMs and managers and all of that. But I do think it's worth pointing things like this out when someone looks and they're like, wow, two guys signed at the same time for the same money. It's amazing how that works. The chances.
Oh.
Kratz, did you like my example I gave you when we talked about this earlier? Was that relevant enough to bring up on the show? It is? Okay.
It was relevant.
The jelly beans?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Todd Father. I don't know if they still do this with the kiddos anywhere. I don't know, at a fair or at schools. Okay, they do this. So Todd Father, right? You got the kiddos and they go up to the jelly bean jar and they're going to guess the number, and whoever guesses closest to the number wins the jelly bean jar.
Sure.
It'd be weird. What if you open up each piece of paper that was put into the hat? Every number's the same.
Yeah.
What are the chances? Everybody's getting the same phone call at the same time with the same numbers. How does that work?
Yeah, no, that would be collusion.
So. That would be collusion, and that is how you teach kids collusion. Anyway, let's get to some of those collusion deals. We can say whatever we want. Listen, it can't be proven. There are very smart people that are able to put programs together, and you can make phone calls. It would take a lot to do it. But when everyone's getting the same, not everyone, when guys like mid-level and lower-level free agents, quote, according to the list, not A-listers, are getting the same call with the same offers, do the math. Let's charge.
He's charging them out.
2 years, $22 million for Luke Weaver. As Bob Nightengale, FT Insider and USA Today Insider reports, he'll follow Devin Williams and depart the Yankees for the Mets. It was first reported by Joel Sherman. Also, Brad Keller received the same deal, which we'll get to second here. But let's start with the Metropolitans, Todd Father. They've had to pick up the pieces. It's been a tough week and change for them publicly, but the night is young. The offseason is young. And now it's Devin Williams and Luke Weaver for high leverage at the back end of the bullpen. I'll actually start with my first comment here. I thought Devin Williams definitely had good stuff last year, but I didn't see a full season of proving that he can handle the big city. So I think when you look at his deal relative to Robert Suarez and to Edwin Diaz, they're in a similar enough range that I rank him, say, third out of those three. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I think Luke Weaver at 2 years, $22 million is a steal for the Mets. I think he could end up being the better reliever and the ninth inning guy for the Metropolitans. So I really like this deal for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree totally. I do. He gave up some big hits, but ultimately the guy's been very consistent. He's developed a couple different pitches. He's a stopper, I call him. And whenever the Yankees needed him last year to kind of, take the fire out a little bit of a big inning, he came in and did his job. Yeah, you wonder, it's like, if that was what it would take, you wonder why the Yankees didn't. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they gave a shot too. Maybe the offer just wasn't there. Maybe he wanted to change the scenery, but he's going from one New York team to the next, and this is the Mets. And these fans, they've been dying, for a playoff team, for a World Series team. So if he's not producing, they're going to be on him early and often, just like what happened at Yankee Stadium all the time. But again, this is a true reliever that you really want. He could be a closer. He could be a long guy. He could be a setup guy. So good pickup right there. I think that's the best pickup that the Mets had recently. And hopefully it'll go up and up for the Mets with their signings.
A little bit of a drop in his strikeout rate after he made the change to not a quick pitch for Luke Weaver, but it was more like he went to the slide step and it kind of got on guys. I think he went over 100 strikeouts the first season that he made that change when he was a full season with the Yankees, like 80-some innings. A little bit less innings, dealt with a little bit of injury. The strikeouts went down a little bit. I like this signing. I don't necessarily like Luke Weaver in the ninth inning consistently. So I think that combination of those two, good for the Mets. The Mets have just been ravaged in the bullpen, and you lose your only consistent piece in Edwin Diaz. They have to keep adding, and I think this is a great 1-2 punch for the back of their bullpen.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they go after yet another high leverage guy. Those are 2 high leverage pickups. They are well aware at how much they have to make up for, not just with Edwin Diaz, but with their pitching staff in general. Their bullpen was falling apart, and I think it's important for them to probably add one more in this realm. I wouldn't be surprised if they still go after someone like Pete Fairbanks right now, but we'll see. Next up, Brad Keller. Kratz, 2 years. Wait for it. $22 million. And they signed minutes apart. He goes to the Phillies. Your thoughts on how this helps the Phils? Brad Keller really emerged. I mean, you look at Weaver to make the comp. Weaver's breakout season was 24. He still was solid in 25. Brad Keller's breakout season was just now.
Very similar in the sense they're both starters. That's what relievers are, failed starters. But I think Brad Keller's just sheer size, and you look at that and you're like, okay, can he sustain it? You'd think he could sustain it. Luke Weaver's stayed healthy for the most part. That's really going to be the biggest thing with Brad Keller, because he has definitely settled into this relieving role. My fear is he only did it for 1 year. So I hope you look at all the metrics, because he was a non-roster invite last year to the Cubs. Like non-roster, not a big league invite, and became a huge piece of that bullpen. Can he sustain it? If it was 3 years, I'd be like, I don't like this. 2 years, I'll be interested to see what Pete Fairbanks ends up getting, because I thought he was like a 2 year, $22 million kind of guy too. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and ultimately, this is great. Non-roster guy, all of a sudden, now he's a big piece. It goes to show you that you keep working your butt off, you keep working your tail off, good things will happen. And he had an opportunity, took with it. And now to make $22 million in 2 years, he's got to be sitting back happy as a clam. Got holidays coming up, and he's going to go out there and help the team try and strive to get back to the playoffs and, win. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it was dynamite with the results this year. 187 ERA plus, and we know, I mean, they're advanced numbers too that people liked. It wasn't crazy swing and miss. Kratz, it was almost a strikeout per inning for a reliever. That's fine. That's not elite, but the ERA was low 2s. And you're right. I mean, this is the first time that it really all came together for him in this role. I know there were some whispers towards the end of the last season, like, oh, will he turn back into a starter? Oh no. I mean, I would want to ride this out a little bit and see what it looks like. And guess what? Not going to happen for him. There's not going to be that question mark in Philly. They have plenty of starting pitching talent. It would take a lot for the Phillies to fall apart and need someone like this to transition to that role. So anyway, there's 2 signings that have just popped up over the last few minutes heading into the show. And let's ask one of our insiders about this as well. We've got Bob Nightengale from USA Today and one of our insiders here on FT joining us. Bob, good to see you. And let's start at the top here. We have 2 fresh signings, as you just pointed out, and we showed the tweet, both for the same amount of money at the same exact time. What do you think of Luke Weaver to the Mets and Brad Keller to the Phillies for 2 years and $22 million?
It was interesting. The Yankees never made an offer on Weaver. It's almost like, when Steinbrenner said, I want to keep this payroll around 300 or under, they're keeping to their word. So maybe they're saving that money for Bellinger or somebody else. So I was fascinated that they didn't make an offer. So I agree with you guys. I thought it was a great deal for Weaver. Keller has made himself a lot of money compared to where he was. And, we talk about everybody making $11 million. Remember, Kenley Jansen did that a few days ago. Then everybody kind of followed him. Okay, if Jansen makes 11, we'll make 11. We saw that last week, of course, at the winter meetings with Alonso and Schwarber, where they're both basically making the same amount of money.
Is the Luke Weaver not getting an offer from the Yankees more news than what it is? Than not just the payroll, the need to get the payroll under a certain spot, or is it the Yankees saw maybe a little bit of a regression or something that they were like, I don't know if this holds up, because they still need bullpen help?
They do. And obviously they know him better than anybody. They know him better than the Mets. They get the medicals. They saw he got hurt last year. So we'll see. I mean, he had an unbelievable bounce back. I thought a few years ago he was almost on the point of retiring, just where his career was going. So he's really remade himself. So, they might have been told too, it's going to take $10 or $11 million multi-years, where the Yankees say, you know what, we're not going to bother making an offer. So they must have had an idea of what it was going to take.
I want to talk one more thing about New York here. The Mets are starting to make these moves after the whole big trade in Nimmo, Alonso didn't come back, Edwin Diaz didn't come back. What's next for the Mets and the Yankees as well? I mean, they're both part of this. I mean, both, Devin Williams played for the Yankees and Weaver played for the Yankees as well. So do you see anything happening before, the holiday comes here with both these New York teams? Anything any more or anything less? What do you think?
Well, the Mets have got to get a big time starter somewhere, whether it's Framber Valdez or Michael King or the Japanese star. You got to get somebody to turn that thing around. So they're reshaping that thing in Stearns' image, and this is what Stearns wants. And I think kudos to Stearns for not caring about the PR backlash. I think he wanted to make this team his style, and kind of told Steve Cohen, okay, you got Soto, let me do the rest here. I still find that whole trade fascinating, that Nimmo was willing to waive his no trade clause after spending his whole time there, building a house in Port St. Lucie. So I still think, and you still hear rumblings of what's actually going on in the clubhouse dynamics.
Let's talk about Tatsuya Imai. Is the market for him going to just explode in the sense that everybody's final offers are going to come in because of that deadline that he has? Couldn't that happen for other free agents if they had their own deadline, which might actually work in Tatsuya Imai's favor for the bigger markets here?
Well, I think with Dylan Cease for what he got, I don't think anybody expected him to get 210, particularly after the year he came off. It's like, is anybody going to top that? So I'm sure, both Imai and Framber Valdez are saying, hey, I want something close to it, if not top it. I think Valdez may say, you know what, let me wait for Imai to sign, and I'm going to piggyback off him. So I think they're kind of looking at each other, that they believe that they should be in the same ballpark, and nobody really wants to jump first.
Let's talk about, you're wearing a purple shirt right now, Arizona Diamondbacks. I think there's a reasoning for that. No, I'm just kidding. But ultimately, Alex Bregman, he's been on a lot of talks, a couple teams here and there. Are the Arizona Diamondbacks a play here, or are we just hearing this?
Well, talking to Diamondback officials, in their words, kicking the tires. I think it's a thing where if they deal Ketel Marte, that's about $100 million coming off the books. Bregman won't be that much more than that, and then you can bring him in. They need a big clubhouse influence in there. They got, some great star players, Corbin Carroll, but a young guy, not really ready to assume that veteran leadership. And I think Bregman would fill that role. Bregman spends his winters in Scottsdale working out. I think he's got a second home here, that sort of thing. So, no one thought that a year ago they'd get Corbin Burns, and they did. And this would be another surprise. They're kind of, seeing where that Bregman market really opens up. But right now, it's kind of the same teams as a year ago. Boston, Detroit, Cubs to a degree, but I'm not sure the Cubs, have as much interest as they did a year ago, because Matt Shaw had a pretty solid rookie year.
Are they kicking the tires so that what you said, like the market kind of kicks up? Like if other teams don't ever make offers or really push for a player, the player's never going to make that much money. So is this just an easy story when you go and call, kind of getting into like what you do when you talk to club officials? It's like, what's the hurt of the Diamondbacks saying, yeah, you know what? We'll see if he's willing to take another 1-year deal. We'll see if he's willing to take, less years, but it's not really something that's out there.
I mean, I don't think it's like a Pittsburgh case where Pittsburgh couldn't wait to tell everybody in the world they wanted a Kyle Schwarber, leaking out the numbers. I don't think it's that case. I think it's that they don't know for sure what happens to Marte. If they move Marte, then there's a spot for him. If they don't move Ketel Marte, then there's really no room. So I think that's why they're letting Scott Boras and them know that, hey, we're involved here, but we got to do some things before we go full force into the Bregman sweepstakes.
Let me ask you this. So it seems like as these trades and free agencies are picking up, it just seems like it's the same old teams. Blue Jays are finding ways, the Phillies, the Braves, the Yankees, the Mets. Do you see any other like teams, Dodgers, coming along here that are just going to find a way to get a free agent? Like if they want somebody, they got to go out and get them and spend. Do you see that happening here, or is it just going to be the big teams taking over again?
I still think it's the big teams. Kansas City's been very aggressive. They're, small market. Atlanta's kind of a dark horse. They've been making moves here. They still got money to spend. So I think they're kind of embarrassed they didn't make the playoffs last year. And so they're full throttle. Love the moves they made so far. But you're right. It reminds you of a year ago, even with guys like Nolan Arenado out there. What happens to him? He's got in the same boat as a year ago, waiting for the Bregman market. He was hoping Bregman would not sign with Boston. He would have been in Boston. If the Diamondbacks don't get Bregman, I think he would love to go to Arizona.
Speaking of Boston, are they doing enough? When they watch the Blue Jays, all these signings, they still haven't signed a big league player yet. They're the only team one of 3 teams to not sign anybody to a big league contract. Now, I get they've made trades, but are they too much, quote, in on people and not actually going after them?
Yeah, I think you're setting the market at their price. I mean, the Dodgers did that, obviously, with Diaz, and the Dodgers have done that, before. They did that with Soto. I'm sure they'll do the same thing with Tucker, saying take it or leave it type of thing. So, yeah, they're just being very methodical about it and say, you know what, we'll wait for someone to panic here and take what we offer. So, and obviously they got plenty of money. They still got that money that they saved on a Rafael Devers trade. So I still think they got some tricks up their sleeve. But wouldn't be surprised at all to see those moves come late January or early February.
How about the Phillies? Are the Phillies done? They got Adolis Garcia. I obviously think, if they were able to move Blum out of third base because it's his last year, he'll be a free agent after this season. And something with Castellanos. Obviously, they filled the Castellanos part. Is there a chance that they move to moving Bohm, or are the Phillies done and they like where their lineup is currently?
I think the Bohm thing would be the X factor. I could see them moving Bohm. And then, if they want, they could jump in on Bregman sort of thing. Because right now, they're going to run the same thing back, except for Jocelyn Crawford. He'll be the starting center fielder. They're excited about Garcia. They think he'll bounce back. And hey, what hitter doesn't want to hit in Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia? So I would think he'll have a much better year there. So they're mixing up. They'll have Andrew Payne in the rotation. So they made enough little moves. But I think Bohm's the only guy who could possibly move and then shake things up even more. But right now, Dave Dombrowski said, we're set. We're not going to get any more outfielders. And, don't really ask them about Bohm, but that's certainly a possibility. If they do move Bohm, then what do they do afterwards?
Talking about third baseman, Eugenio Suarez. Hasn't been much talk about him lately, kind of under the radar. A very good third baseman, a really good hitter too, in my opinion. How do you see him shaping up here eventually with the team and the third base market in general? How do you see it shaking up as we move forward?
Yeah, I think what hurts him is that the Diamondbacks, trade him, and they pretty much trade him for nothing. They didn't get a whole bunch back in return. I think they were stunned how little they got back. And then they trade him, and then Seattle pretty much says, hey, we're not bringing him back. No interest. Granted, he didn't have a great finish for them, but still had some big games and played there in the past. So I think those two things hurt his value. I think he kind of sits out there waiting to see what happens with Murakami. So when Murakami signs and his deadline is Monday, then he can kind of realize, okay, what spots are open. And then when wherever he goes, then I think Arenado waits for him and says, okay, hopefully I'll get traded to where he is. And I think the Cardinals will eat a lot of money, just like they had a lot of money in Sonny Gray. I think they'll eat a lot of money too in Arenado's contract just to get back those prospects.
So is the market held up by Murakami? Is the market held up by the fact that you can get whatever, you can get Arenado for essentially nothing? Or who would you say is holding the market up right now of those three?
Yeah, those three has got to be Murakami. He's the he's the stud everybody wants. No one's quite sure what you get. I mean, you get do you get 40 home runs and 200 strikeouts? A lot of teams will take that, but they just don't know. Suarez is very streaky. Arenado, pretty much finished the second half on the injury list, so you're not quite sure what you get from him either, health wise. So of the three, I would think that Arenado would be the last one to get traded. It wouldn't shock me to see him in spring training just for teams to see what he can do, or at least, work out for teams to say what he has left. So he's got 2 years on his contract. Suarez was unbelievable for the Diamondbacks, but he just wasn't that same guy with the Mariners.
Hey, I want to double down on Murakami. I don't feel like I've gotten the info that I wanted leading up to this signing. I look up, suddenly I'm like, whoa, he's going to sign in the next several days, right? I mean, the deadline is on Monday. So you presume we're doing this show right now on, I don't even know what day it is. Is today Tuesday or Wednesday? This is how my life is these days. Wednesday, right? So Bob, we're running out of time here. And usually with a player of this ilk, who is a big deal out in Japan with big power, I get it, swing and miss concerns, cool. Get in line. There are many on that list in terms of free agency and players in general these days. No whining and dining and visiting teams. We usually find out a little bit of that when someone's being courted. Do you find it odd that we haven't heard about it? Maybe either it's been kept really quiet or he's not doing the tour and the song and dance and he's just figuring out where's the best fit and the best money and signing there.
Yeah, I think it's just more on behalf of what he wants. He wants it to be quiet. Roki Sasaki is pretty quiet too. I mean, everybody kind of assumed it was going to be the Dodgers. Then we heard of the Padres, but it wasn't like he was out there announcing. It was just when he got spotted. So for Murakami not to be doing tours and not being spotted on social media, I think helps him. But I bet I bet he what he wants. I'm sure he told his agency, let's keep this quiet. For all we know, the Tigers are all lined on him. Tigers would like to have a third baseman. It would seem like they would get one of these guys. Maybe it's Murakami. They spend that kind of money. So, kudos to him for keeping it quiet. It may just be out of the blue on Monday. Like, okay, here it is, boom. Almost like what Atlanta does with all their trades and transactions. It's like you're not sure what's coming until they just, announce it right there on social media.
Does that make it more likely that it is a team like the Tigers or like the Reds, or when you don't hear much? Are there certain teams that's their MO that, hey, we're not going to really publicize this? And if the player doesn't publicize it, then nobody really finds out about it.
Yeah, it is. I think Baltimore kept that so quiet there, with Schwarber keeping it as quiet as possible, knowing that they don't want the Phillies to top it, where, Pittsburgh made theirs public. Cincinnati was, semi-private, but they whined and dined him in August when they had him throw out the first pitch and with his father and coach, and they would have kept going up too. It's just that I think Schwarber said, "I want to go back to Philadelphia. Don't waste your time." But I think if you're really serious about a guy, you do keep it as quiet as possible because you don't want anybody to know how interested you are.
Bob, I'll finish with this. It was where we started with the reliever signings, and we keep learning more about the Edwin Diaz exit from the Mets. What did you think of his recent comments regarding the conversations they had about the money and the Mets had flexibility? It sounds like he basically brought the number he felt like the market was at to the Mets. They said no, but maybe later. And he brought it to the Dodgers and they said yes, but now. And he signed.
Well, I think he got totally incensed when he found out that Devin Williams, got signed through social media, that he wasn't given a warning like, hey, if you don't take this, we're going to sign Devin Williams. Once they signed Devin Williams, I know the Mets said, we're still interested in Diaz, but not really. They're not going to spend $150 million on two back-end relievers. And I think then when they started, kind of nickel and diming him, saying, well, it's a 3-year deal, we'll raise it a little bit. And he was just fed up and say, you know what? Let me go to the Dodgers. Let me save 50, 60 games a year. Let me go in the Hall of Fame this way. So I think the whole Williams thing and the way they handle it just had him, off the deep end. Like, wait a minute now. After everything I've given you guys, particularly down the stretch when he was pitching 2 innings at a time. I remember that last game in Miami. I think he pitched in the 4th inning, 2 innings. So he sacrificed a lot for those guys. And I think he said, you know what, I'm out of here. He could have gone somewhere else. But he said, let me join the Dodgers. They're going to treat me right. And hey, let me save 60, 70 games. Maybe 50 is too low.
Last one here. Which side are you on with that game? If the Mets really did still want to court him, do you think that they mishandled this? You definitely have a crowd that will say, why does he need a phone call? If the Mets are offering him big money, he's likely going to still be their closer. They're getting themselves not only a backup plan, but somebody that helps make his job presumably easier. So he doesn't have to always pop into the 8th inning and they're fighting for their playoff lives. I mean, if you're Edwin Diaz, you would love to have 3-4 closers around you. So if it literally comes down to the phone call, then okay, it's nice to know. I actually take the other side here, Bob, which maybe you're taking. If I'm the Mets and I feel like that's what he needs and I'm really recruiting him, a phone call costs me nothing. So I'll just make the call and be like, hey, just so you know, we still love you. We're going after you. We're just getting Devin Williams to pop into the 8th inning if need be. So hope that's cool. We don't want to overwork you over the next 3-4 years. And will you sign here? But clearly he was offended by the actual process that went down from a communication standpoint.
Yeah, no, I think it offended him. I think he did deserve that phone call. Everything he's done for the Mets, being with them for 7 years, and just like you said, Scott, just explain it to him. Hey, we're not signing him to replace you, but just to help you out. But just for him to know that, hey, we saw that a few years ago in Atlanta with Freddie Freeman. Remember when they traded for Olsen, Matt Olsen, and he had no idea. He was kind of blindsided by that. It's like, whoa, I guess I'm out of here. And I think maybe the same thing here with Diaz. Like, hey, I'm out of here too. I'm not coming back for the same amount of years as you given Devin Williams. I deserve at least a 4 or 5 year deal. So I think not apples and apples, but I think a little bit just hurt feelings that can't you at least give me a phone call to let me know what's happening here?
I think you're 100% right, and I'm going to leave you with this because it wouldn't be me. I'm from Jersey. I like to put you on the spot here a little bit, like what I always do when I talk to you. Give me something right now that you think, out of the ordinary or you think might happen, before the new year. What trade or what kind of free agent, just something outlandish that you think might happen. It might not happen, but something in your mind where it's like, this seems like a logical place for this person to go.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, the Padres are up to something with A.J. Preller. I would not be shocked to see, Miller on the move again and, maybe Pivetta with them. So I think they're going to be the biggest surprise. And I still think the Mets have some stuff up their sleeve. They've already stolen a couple of guys from the Yankees. Why not go one more and grab a Bellinger? I think they want those young, and I think that'd be a perfect fit. I don't think they're big on Tucker, but I think Bellinger fits them perfectly as far as playing great defense in the outfield and first base, which would leave. I think Tucker ends up in Toronto. I don't see a big fit with him anywhere else.
Podfather, I heard a Ric Flair woo from you.
Ooh, baby, if some is good, more is better. I always say, let's go.
Woo! All right, well, that's a good way to finish it, Bob. Great to chat, and we'll look forward to more reports and updates from you on socials and in USA Today this week. I think it'll continue to be active. Thanks, Bob. Good talking to you.
All right, happy holidays, guys. Take care.
You too. Take care.
For all the parents out there with teenagers like Kratz, we know life's a little crazy.
Yeah, Cash App's here to not add to the craziness. They're here to help.
Yeah, Kratz, Cash App is designed to meet teens aged 13 to 17 where they are with intuitive educational tools. Available through sponsorship by an eligible parent or guardian, teens gain access to a personalized Cash App card. With the Cash App card, you and your teen's balances receive 24/7 fraud monitoring, and if something ever feels off, you have the ability to lock their card right from your phone in just one tap. Download Cash App and get started today. For a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Direct deposit and promotions provided by Cash App. a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Let's get into the Tatsuya Imai market. Francis Romero's done a nice job breaking some stories the last few years, including this offseason. He said around 5 MLB teams have shown real interest in the 27-year-old ace per industry sources. He expects the Yankees and the Cubs to be finalists to sign Imai out of the 5 that he's got in his head or that he's hearing from industry sources. Okay. What do we think of those two? Todd Father, for me, they both make sense. The Cubs have Imanaga, and they had more success with him 2 years ago than they did this past season, but I still think that signing has been a success. There is a pipeline to Japan that the Cubs have built. They were just there this past season to begin the year. They have both Imanaga and Seiya Suzuki, so you've got friends. Not that Imai cares, right? He doesn't necessarily care, although he's a talker, which I like. But it sounds like he's down for the Cubs, and he's not down for the Dodgers. Not that they necessarily want him either, but it sounds like he wants to beat up on, Shohei's little dream team of the Monstars. And then the Yankees you can speak to really well because they're going to be missing some guys at the start of the year.
Yeah, and I think that would be the best choice for him, for the Yankees to have this guy here. Imai, a really good pitcher. Understandably, has been in the spotlight for a long time now, knows what it's all about. I love what he said. He said, of course, I'd love to play with Shohei and Yamamoto and all those guys and Sasaki, but at the same token, I'm not afraid to go up against the beast. Let's go. So, yeah, these two teams are perfect match for him. He would suit well with both of them, but the Yankees are in much need of a starting pitcher right now, and this can only help them out too. So we'll see pretty soon.
I'd love to see the Yankees go after Imai because he solidifies that first April, May before Rodon and Cole come back. And even when they come back, you never know. We saw a lot of, especially with Cole, we saw guys come back and maybe weren't necessarily their best self throughout the entire season. They'll probably be able to lock it in during the postseason. But the Imai signing, I think, could also then free up somebody like a Luis Hill that could maybe pry Byron Buxton away from the Twins. Like if you have younger starting pitching, and I get it, Hill's getting up there in service time because of some of his injury time. I just see maybe there's a little bit different way to go about it. And what have the Yankees done the last 2 off seasons? The best starting pitchers available. Last 3 off seasons. Rodon was available, got him. Cole was available, got him. Max Fried, you could debate, was he the best available? But they went after their guy and got him.
Wait, what? Why is Max Fried catching strays right now? I love to interrupt.
I don't think
he was Max Fried catching strays. It was him and Corbin Burns, right? They were the 2 best free agent starters available.
Right. And Corbin Burns was better. Max Fried was the best lefty available, unless you say Garrett Crochet was available, and the Yankees never got in on that. So
yeah, but you were on the right track there. You're saying the best starting pitching talent per offseason for most of the last half decade, they're involved and they're grabbing them. Results are results afterward, but in terms of what you're looking at, you have to be pleased if you're a Yankee fan. They're going after the big fish.
100%. I'm just more talking about who they're in on, who they like. I talked to one guy who has seen Imai over in Japan. I was talking about a lot of the Japanese guys, and I know the Yankees really like what they see. It's just a matter of, what does that price look like, but also how strict is Hal going to be, Hal Steinbrenner, in this whole luxury tax threshold thing, the soft salary cap. We'll see.
And that's the big question. They talked about, Cashman talked about, little, not much in his, when he was talking to reporters and everything else, but I've heard he was talking a lot about who he wants to go after and what might happen on the side. So we'll see how this all, spills out, because there hasn't really been much going on, a couple here and there, but Yeah, I'm excited to see what the Yankees do and where they're going to get after, because they need another starting pitcher, at least one.
In my opinion, this is the best guy on the market.
And so they're gonna make a push. This isn't like some other teams. Oh, they were in on him. They're gonna make a push because of the evaluations I've seen about him, because of what we've seen Yamamoto do when he came over. They're gonna make a push. If the Cubs are really the one that's like, hey, we're the most serious, the Yankees are gonna push them. And I'm wondering what the view of Japanese players is of going to Chicago, if we're just saying Chicago or New York, what the view is. Because I know I've said it here a ton of times. Masahiro Tanaka said the Yankees were the team that you wanted to go play for when you were a kid, coming up through through grade school, through high school. You wanted to go and play for the Yankees. And he said, I will only play for the Yankees. I think he's unique in that sense, but there's still lore. There's still the Yankee lore. And I think that it gives the Yankees an advantage. But again, are they willing to push that soft salary cap number, which they've said they're not? And does it inhibit them from getting that center field, first base, Cody Bellinger type?
I don't hate your idea. Hey, Bellinger's getting pricey for us. Let's sign Imai for a similar number or less. And then we could have a surplus and trade from that to try and acquire a center fielder. The only thing is, I don't know who is available, and the name you brought up seems like he's not available. Sure, you can be talked into anything, but it does appear as if the Twins are not going to trade away their talent. That doesn't just hurt the center field market with Byron Buxton. It also hurts the starting pitching market. There were teams that were banking on a Joe Ryan acquisition or maybe a Pablo Lopez ad, and it took a little bit of leverage away, right? Teams are looking like, hey, this starting pitching market's too expensive. I'll just go give up a lot in prospect talent and grab Joe Ryan. But it appears as if the Twins are still going to be on their track. Maybe I'm wrong on that, Kratz, as it's been a winding road even for the Twins front office, right? Derek Falvey has talked about it publicly. It's like, we don't know where we stand. Here comes the minority investors, all that kind of deal. So anyway, we're looking at some comments as we're talking about it. Neil said, I thought Imai wanted to be the only Japanese player on the team. I think that was misconstrued. It sounded more like fun, playful shots at the Dodgers specifically, that he doesn't need to go to the team that has 3 Japanese players already and has developed this super strong pipeline and dominance in the Japanese market. So I think that's more of what you're looking at with someone like Imai. And at this point, it doesn't appear as if the Dodgers are in on him anyway. So that's a fun thing to say. Like, hey, I'm different. Teams, look at me. I want to beat the Dodgers. Many owners are jealous of them right now. I would love to join your ball club and knock them down a notch.
Or maybe like Roki knew where he was going. Imai knew that the Dodgers weren't in on him. And so it was his opportunity to take a free shot. It's a free shot. And I love that. I love that for him.
I do too. I really do. So anyway, that's the Imai market. Do we have time to get to the next thing, or are we going to break quick and bring on our guest? I think we're going to break to bring on our guest, and then we'll get back to some other topics. Let's do it as in what? Let's do the next topic, or let's do the guest? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do this. We've got, real quick, Lance Lynn on Cardinal territory, and that show's blowing up. So I advise you to check it out. Even if you're not a Cardinals fan, they cover a lot of topics that we cover too. Kyle Gibson, Matt Holliday, etc. Here's Lance on the specifics of a no trade clause, because I think that can often get misconstrued. It's not like, oh, I just hate all these teams. There's strategy to this. And I thought Lance was very insightful here on how he dealt with this.
My no trade was full of teams that I thought would trade for me so I can control things, maybe even get a new contract. Like, there was more said than that. I didn't put teams that on there were bad because I didn't plan on pitching and bad enough to where I would get traded to those teams, and I was making too much money for those teams to even take me. So my thought was, all right, I'm gonna put all the teams on there that I know that will be looking to add a veteran starter and aren't afraid of the money, and then I can control the market on where I'm going to go and what I can do. And that was my mindset in the no trade. And then I lifted it to LA. I would say most every team on my no trade year I left Chicago, I would have went to. So it was one of those things where I had a 10-team no trade, but I picked the 10 teams that I thought were going to be in the playoffs so I can control where I was going to go.
Lance Lynn is always he's always in control of what he's a very smart guy. He was a very good ball player. He's just a guy that his presence is felt everywhere he goes, good, bad, or indifferent. I loved him to death, but there's always a method to his madness, and he understood the process, as they say. So he's no dummy when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, it's not just, I hate these teams, I'm putting them on my limited no trade list, because many of those teams are not going to be the team you end up with. You know what we have to do? Actually, I just remember this. It's always one of my favorite stories. When Matt Holliday signed, and I don't remember where, he got a 1-team no trade in there, and I think it was the A's. I got to go back and check all that, but I remember now that Matt's part of our crew, so maybe we can spark that conversation back up, where he was just
was that
like,
in
hey,
17 with the Yankees,
treating this place like a dump. That might have been where he's like, yo, I just don't want to end up there. The owner doesn't give a crap about the team, and the facilities are falling apart.
I think sometime when Matt comes on, or they should talk about it with the Cardinals, I think everybody would find it interesting to find out what the other team that he was choosing between in 2017 was. And maybe it's out there, but I think it's ironic how the 2017 season ended up, where he ended up, and who they signed in place of him. So anyway, Matt Holliday story.
Yeah, Matt Holliday story. We should get him on soon. We can promote the show, but also, yes. So he had a 1-team no trade clause in his contract when he signed with the Yankees, and that was the Oakland A's, because he did not have a great experience playing with them for a short period of time in 2009 before he ended up being traded to the Cardinals and had a great experience there. Remember, he was acquired by Oakland from the Rockies late 2008, and then mid-2009, the A's sent him out to the Cardinals. Anyway, let's get to Sam Blum, a number of categories, including a big court case that he's been covering. It's been hard work, and he's actually stepping aside from that case to chat with us. Hey, and we're back with Sam Blum joining us right now. We're going to first get into where he's been for the majority of his life over the last few months. Sam writes for The Athletic, of course, covering the Angels and many other topics, including this court case that involves the Angels and the wrongful death lawsuit that has been brought by the Tyler Skaggs family and parties. So, Sam, let's first get an update on where we're at, as it appears that we are getting close to a verdict. Is that correct?
Yeah, they started deliberating about 25 hours ago. They had a night off. I should make that clear. But yeah, I mean, this is the very end. I mean, this is 3 months. This trial started September 22nd. I think the jury started actually hearing the case on October 14th. So it's been, over 2 months of listening to testimony. And so I don't know when they're going to have a verdict. It could be while we're sitting here talking. It could be, tomorrow, Friday, next week. But yeah, I mean, it's just been a really intense, heavy story, intense, heavy case. And I don't know where it's going to land, but I tend to think the longer this goes, they have to. There's a lot of questions on that. There's 26 questions for the jury to answer, and they have to go through a lot of different elements. Like, if they do find that the Angels are somewhat responsible, they're going to have to go through and find the apportionment, like the percentage of responsibility that Tyler had, that the Angels had, that Erik had. They have to determine, was Erik working in the course and scope of his job when he did all this? So, if they want to find for punitive damages, that changes everything. I mean, that could add a lot of money to whatever the payout potentially could be. So, and even if they do find for punitive damages, then they have to do a whole separate hearing to determine the actual value of the Los Angeles Angels. So there's still a lot to be done, but it's getting to the end, and there's a lot of questions for that jury to work through right now.
Sam, I know this is a loaded question. I've been following your articles in The Athletic, and we'll only get to 1% sliver of what you've written about, but can you point out some notables to get people caught up on what's happening there? I think the way to do it is to help fans relate to some names that they really know. Mike Trout, Matt Harvey, even Dan Duquette, I know recently sitting up there and answering questions, and everyone had some uniqueness to it in terms of having to get really open about, whether it's how Tyler was a teammate or getting into, painkiller medicine, stuff like that. And then for Dan, most recently, he was actually, from what I understand in your article, paid to speak and essentially talk down his value so that if the Skaggs family is entitled to money, it wouldn't be as much money.
Yeah, so I'll get into that first because I think it's interesting. They had, an ex-Major League Baseball general manager as a paid expert witness. The Skaggs side had Jeff Fennell, who was a longtime union lawyer, come in and argue on their behalf earlier in the trial. This has been kind of the trial within the trial because I think it is the most tangible thing that either side could argue is what would Tyler Skaggs have earned? It's a really dark arbitration case essentially. What would he have earned had he finished his career, had this not all happened essentially? Because that's damages that the Skaggs side is trying to recoup essentially. And so, I was a little surprised by Dan Duquette's testimony. I felt like a lot of the stats he utilized were way out of context, in my opinion. They had a whole slide up there saying Tyler Skaggs was declining in his career. And if you look at his numbers from 2018 and the first half of 2019 before he died, I mean, he was having the two best seasons and healthiest seasons of his career. They use numbers like curveball, spin rate, stuff like that to show that they were declining. But in no way was Tyler Skaggs declining as an actual pitcher at that point in his career. I think the Angels can make a case, well, if he had been found out, that impacts his value and things like that, as, been found out as someone that was, involved in this drug kind of situation and using drugs and if helping to facilitate to other players, certainly that would have impacted his value. But in terms of actual pitching, he was the best pitcher on a really bad pitching team, and ultimately was kind of getting better as he went. So that was an interesting thing to me, like why the Angels are trying to, really diminish his value as a pitcher and why a GM would go up there and make that case for them. But, it's what it is. In terms of the actual arguments, Mike Trout, I mean, this case ultimately comes down to where the Angels negligent in their supervising of Erik K., who's now in prison, who's the person who provided the lethal fentanyl pill to Tyler Skaggs that killed him in 2019. And so that's the crux of this case. Mike Trout came in as a witness for the Skaggs side and, I think ultimately more as a neutral third person essentially. But, he talked about knowing about Erik K's drug addiction, right? Knowing that he was dealing with this and offering to actually at one point pay for his rehabilitation if he needed it. So that's why some of these witnesses have been coming in. I mean, I think you saw Trevor Plouffe tweet about this the other day, and he was a witness on behalf of the Skaggs side. They didn't end up calling him, but there's been a lot of players that have come in. Mike Morin, a former pitcher, Matt Harvey testified for as part of the Angels case about being a source of drugs for Skaggs in the last month of his life, and even having pills with him that came from Matt Harvey on the day that he died. So, but they were not ultimately the lethal pill that killed him. So, that's kind of been the crux of this case. There's so many things. It's so nuanced. There's so much context that goes with every single thing we talk about. So it's hard to get into all of it. But, I think that's what ultimately the jury is deciding is, were the Angels negligent in their supervising of Erik K? Did they follow their own policies? Did they act reasonably in dealing with him? And was Tyler Skaggs, from the Angels side of it, how complicit is Tyler Skaggs in his own death, right? How, taking that pill, what role does that have and kind of how the jury looks at this, his own choice that he made to do that. So I think it's a really interesting, complicated set of questions that they face. And, there's not really an easy answer to that. But, they've heard 9 weeks of testimony, so they'll have enough information to work with.
You have been there for 30 days. You have seen this. You've been day in and day out in the court. The big names we hear, obviously, Tyler Skaggs died. Mike Trout's on the stand. Harvey used drugs. Erik K's in prison. The Angels are... Is there any one group that's really kind of sliding by? A person or maybe like a group of people, like, say, Major League Baseball, who's accepting zero responsibility for this and kind of not really being the ones that are at the forefront because of all those big names and exactly what happened, and Erik K's in prison? Is there a group of people or a certain person that's kind of sliding by and not getting I don't even know what the right word is, but not in trouble?
Yeah. I don't look at this as MLB's fault here. And the reason I say that is, I know that the Skaggs side would have probably included them. And they had Tim Mead and Erik Kay listed as defendants initially in this lawsuit. And Tim Mead was, a longtime PR guy for the Angels, led the PR department, and is kind of at the crux of, someone that allegedly knew about the dynamic between Skaggs and Kay. But I don't look at MLB as being complicit here, because MLB's policies, and that's really what one of the main arguments here is, and they've come up a lot in this trial, because at one point, an Angels witness, their VP for HR, said that the Angels notified MLB about Erik Kay's drug addiction, and there's no evidence. And I shouldn't say notified; they said they worked with him, and there's just no evidence of that. It did, MLB has come out and said that didn't happen. So they actually went on the record and kind of refuted what was testified to by that Angels VP. So I don't look at MLB as super complicit in this. They have pretty set policies on what should have happened here. They have a drug oversight committee that in theory should have been involved in this. I think the Angels are arguing that they followed, at the very least, they followed the policy of utilizing a team doctor essentially to help treat Erik, and that would have been what MLB would have done. But MLB wasn't a part of this, and I think if they had their way, they would have been, but you have to be notified. I mean, they don't know what's going on the ground every day in Anaheim, and I think that's the role of the team, and that's ultimately what is being argued here. Why weren't their policies followed? Why wasn't MLB's policies followed? Why weren't people notified of this when there were multiple episodes alleged about Erik Kay utilizing drugs at work and things like that?
How surprising was that part of the case? To me, that was incredibly surprising based on how the league is usually so lockstep with the teams and the owners. It almost sounds like an accusation's made. The league's like, whoa, hold up. That is not true. And they push it back. It usually sounds like something that would be taken care of behind the scenes before it actually gets to court, and makes it look like the group overseeing another group and really in cahoots with a group is battling within this case.
I think that testimony surprised people, right? I think that's where this, MLB is, I think from my understanding, has kind of allowed the Angels to do what they need to do here, right? Like it's their decision. I mean, it's their ultimately Artie Moreno's business. He can decide if he wants to, how he wants to approach, this case. Do you want to settle it? Do you want to work? You want to go to trial? Like that's, I think the league has kind of allowed them to be autonomous in that front at the very least. But, once that accusation comes up that they're working together and that Erik Kay was, tested under MLB policy and things like that, I think that's where MLB was kind of like, we can't allow that to be out that narrative. I mean, I don't want to speak for the league, so I probably shouldn't even say that. I think they put that statement out there because you're there was a narrative, and this is a legal case, and I don't think that MLB wants to be part of that legal case. And when you say that MLB was involved in his treatment in any capacity, that brings them into it. So I agree with you. It surprised me, and that was why I reached out to the league, right after that testimony happened, and asked them if they had any comment on it. And like you said, you don't usually see that kind of dispute happening between teams, especially in an ongoing legal matter. So it surprised me, certainly. And that statement ended up kind of being read in court. Another ex-team president, Frank Coonelly, former Pirates president and longtime MLB general counsel, testified on behalf of the Angels, and he ended up getting handed that statement by one of the Skaggs lawyers and was read, and because he was kind of implying some similar things about, basically the league. Basically the Angels working under league policy, essentially, to treat Erik Kay. I don't remember exactly, so I don't want to speak out of line of what exactly he said, but it was, basically saying that the team's EAP, their employee assistance professional, was treating Erik Kay, and that would have, been kind of adequate under the policy. So, I think that MLB is a little frustrated at least at that particular, comment by Deborah Johnston, the Angels VP, but I know we're going through a lot of different names here, so it's probably confusing some of the audience, but it's a complicated case, and I apologize if I'm, going astray here.
Yeah, but the point also is that if someone's checking this out for 10 minutes, there's a world of information. You can know almost everything there is to know from a public standpoint if they read your work. So this is just a sliver. Like I said, you're doing great on it. And I want to spin it forward, kind of last topic on this, then we'll get to the Angels. Sure. But we're going to get a verdict. So what could we be looking at, right? Could we look at nothing and the Angels are, whatever the terminology is, innocent? They don't have to pay anything to the Skaggs family. Could we see hundreds of millions of dollars go to the Skaggs family? Could we see that then get to the next level of whatever they call it, I'm forgetting a lot of the legal terminology right now, where they challenge it and then it goes back to court again. So I know that's kind of a two-parter. And then the last part here that you can all answer together, because I think it's all related, is if the Skaggs side does win something here, does it get looked at as something that could be, precedent going forward, not for this specific thing, but when something happens within an organization and a player feels like he missed out on career earnings for it, or his family that he left?
Yeah, so to answer like the first question, right? Like this could be appealed. I imagine it would be, assuming there's, any sort of judgment against the Angels, and maybe even the Skaggs side could appeal if there's a judgment, not wouldn't say judgment against them, but if they don't win, I don't know exactly what will happen and how it will all play out. But yeah, I mean, to answer your last question, like the precedent side of this, I mean, as far as I'm aware, there's never been a professional sports team that's been found responsible for the death of a player, right? This is a wrongful death case. That's ultimately the question here, like the responsibility. Now, there are different machinations of what that responsibility could look like. They could say the Angels are 10% responsible, and then that dollar value is 10% of it. And you could say Tyler Skaggs is 90. I don't know what they'll come up with. I know that the Skaggs side asked the jury essentially to find the Angels like 70 to 90% responsible for this. And the rest either goes to Erik or to Tyler Skaggs. So, but that's how this works. I mean, they're going to find apportionment of responsibility. They're going to find a dollar value, and then that will basically be, or it could be zero, right? The Angels could just come out with, winning this case outright for all we know. So I don't know what will happen. There's so many questions that will have to be answered, and this might go on for a little while, and I certainly expect an appeal regardless of kind of the results. I believe there might have been even a request for a mistrial that was not granted. So, there's still a lot to happen here. And if they have to redo this trial, that would be another 3 months of my life, but we'll see. Not.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, not in your control, and you're doing a great job covering it. What'd you say?
No, I said I don't think that'll happen, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I hope something like this, just from the outside perspective, gets resolved soon, because no matter how you slice it, it is ugly. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. You're talking about someone who passed away, tragedy, and then you're bringing up the value of that person as a player and what he did off the field. Like, a lot of personal and private information on both sides. It's not like the Angels are having fun with this, but they're challenging it. So anyway, you're doing a great job. It's been cool to read everything just from an insider perspective, to see what's going on inside the courthouse, since, of course,
I appreciate it.
Most of us cannot be there. So thanks for that. And then I'm going to make life a little bit easier on you now, because the second portion of our conversation is baseball moves. Off-season to-do list. Let's hit the Angels. They've done some things already, but Sam, what do you think's on the docket for them?
Well, okay, I think I put together a little list. The top thing that I find interesting is how they're going to navigate Mike Trout and Jorge Soler, because this, to me, is it's not the most important question, but it's really interesting because both these guys, I mean, Trout, I know, is going into the season wanting to play at the outfield, but he also went into last season wanting to play outfield, and then by the end of April, he didn't play another game defensively the whole season. And you're kind of also looking at a lot of injuries. You're looking at him being a year older. You've already had issues keeping him on the field. So I think at the very least, you're going to expect a lot of DH. I mean, that's just my read on this. And then you have Jorge Soler, who really, he got injured a lot last year, and he directly said it's because I'm playing the outfield a lot. Like, he doesn't really want to play the outfield, I don't think. When he's out there, he's just not a natural. I mean, maybe at earlier points in his career was a better defensive player, but just not a good defensive player at this point. So, and it's hurting him physically. So I don't know how you handle that. I don't know if there's like a trade partner for Soler, or if there's, some way to work through this. I mean, in theory, they traded Taylor Ward, so there's space in the outfield. I just don't know exactly how they're going to fill that, if they're going to want to go and add more players, and what you do with Joe Adell, because then you're also working with the reality that Joe Adell, if you look at his numbers, was a really bad defensive center fielder, but a really good defensive right fielder. So is Trout going to go back to center? That was brought up and as a possibility at the winter meetings. So I just think that they kind of have to work through this problem. Is it a problem to have two good hitters? No, but it is something you gotta navigate when you're talking about players that maybe just aren't capable of playing every day defensively.
All right. Well, then let's go with let's go with your first note there. Soler and Trout. Obviously, you want to keep Mike Trout healthy. He's got more years left on his contract. Is Jorge Soler's market completely diminished in the sense that it's really only a 1-year, $14 million deal? I'm not sure how much of it's backloaded, if there's more than that, but essentially that's what it comes out to.
Right.
Is his power, if a team is able to be found to have it at DH, worth the $14 million? Because if not, why the heck did they trade for him last year? They put themselves in this situation knowing what's happened to Mike Trout the last few years.
I think you had me on like the day after they traded for Soler. We had this exact conversation, and I was like, yeah, I could see this definitely becoming a problem, and then it definitely has been. And so, I mean, listen, I think if you're trading Soler, it's probably for another bad contract, right? Because at this point, I don't think Soler is looked at as like highly valuable. I mean, he had a bad year last year. He was hurt last year. So, I know Perry's talked about, well, he tends to do well on contract years, but he's also, I think, like 35 now. So he's never been 35 in those contract years before. So if you're going to trade him, I think it would, you maybe could trade for a similar contract or something like that. I think that would be and they might decide to do that, because I don't know how you're going to navigate this issue. I mean, it's just kind of like they're stuck on it. The best solution would be Mike Trout playing defense every day, but I mean, I wouldn't rely on that at this point. I mean, going into the season, that will be the plan, I'm sure, but it's not, it's just not a reliable plan given everything we know from the last 5 seasons. So yeah, I would think they should try to trade him if they can, maybe for a pitcher that's similar, or a starting pitcher with a similar type of contract, that's not necessarily reliable, but you hope that you can get something out of it.
Hey Sam, we're on a show every day, so we're wrong a lot. We're right sometimes. I'm glad you brought that up. Right. Just DMing with Kratz. I'm like, we smashed that move last year. Yeah. Respectfully, like, this isn't against Jorge Soler, and we know that the Angels needed power. I remember everything about it because I start to harp on certain things, and it was like, oh, Trout's going to take too many swings if he's a DH. And I'm with you on this pushing forward part too. Really going to throw Mike Trout into the outfield regularly? Center field, get out of here. You're going to put Trout running around center field at the age and the injuries that he's gone through, some of which seem chronic at this point. To me, I think Mike Trout still has value as a bat, and I think he can fill significant DH time. I mean, he's certainly being paid to contribute as much as possible, so I would figure that out. That's why, for me, the move baffled me so much last year. It's not against Soler, it's not against the DH spot, but how they looked at it for Mike Trout to get himself back on the field. I'm sure there's pushback from Mike. As you're a competitor and one of the best in the sport for a long period of time, you want to see that. But the organization has to push back like, hey, dude, paying you a ton of money. We want to take care of you and make sure that you get as many ABs as possible. That's your value at this point in your career.
I mean, if you look at their lineup last year, I mean, they had the second most strikeouts in the history of baseball last year, that team. I mean, this was a team that just was not putting the ball in play. So you're, at this point, I mean, you got to be, having Jorge Soler in your lineup is, they wanted pop, like they needed like that type of power after last offseason. So I think that was like kind of the idea behind it, but it didn't really pay off in any capacity. I mean, he hit some home runs, but it wasn't, he wasn't even available for much of the season. And, and that even dovetails into the other things, which is, what do you do at third base? I mean, you could put Christian Moore out there, or, you got Vaughn Grissom, or, Oswald Peraza, but you're also dealing with a lot of players that continue to have these strikeout issues. So I don't know what they're going to do. They need to have a third baseman. This has been this position since they signed Rendon. It's just been one after the other, after the other, after the other. It has been nothing but like disaster at that position. So I don't know if they're going to just try to run out one of the guys they already have, if they're going to try to make an acquisition of some kind. But I think the players that you're working with on your roster are huge strikeout prone players at this point. Now, I don't know if that's a coaching thing. They've got a new coach, whole new coaching staff, new manager, everything like that. So maybe there's a different approach that's coming up. But I think my concern would be for this lineup is that it's still going to be really strikeout heavy.
I want to hit on Rendon a little bit here for the offseason topic number 2. You talked about his replacement. Fine. Okay. Understandable. That's, if you're an Angels fan, that's frustrating to hear, because ultimately you're looking for somebody to solidify that spot. Are they working on a buyout plan for Anthony, or are they talking about something about him?
I think it's like a preliminary stage right now. If I had to kind of read between the lines of, I think that's what Perry would love, if I had to guess. I mean, he's on the last year of his contract. So my question with Rendon is always, is it really even valuable to them to work on this buyout? I kind of waffle between those two competing thoughts because, I mean, are the Angels really going to be competitive in 2026, given what we saw last year, given the roster? I mean, is this really a team that you expect to like be a playoff team next year? And I mean, I wouldn't personally. So it doesn't make sense to just like pay this contract out, get it off your books, get it out of your life, get it out of your headspace. Or do you want to, because any sort of buyout would probably mean a deferral of some kind. So then you're paying him more money next year or the year after. So that's really the question, for me. And we already know Artie hates these deferrals. We saw that with Shohei, obviously. This is not something he typically does. So I think that if the front office, I think everyone maybe below Artie would love to see some sort of deferral plan, but I don't know exactly where it all stands. And I do think this will ultimately be an Artie conversation with Boris and with Anthony, with everybody that's directly involved in that process. I just don't think they're that. I don't want to report exactly because I don't know for sure, but I don't think it's like on the doorstep or anything. I could be wrong, but that's not the sense I've gotten. But again, I don't know if it's the smart thing for them to do. Part of me just says let this contract be this contract, and we shouldn't worry about is Perry going to get his shot at a playoff team or at more money in free agency this season when I'm not sure the Angels have justified spending big this offseason and trying to really go for it next year, even though that's kind of what they do every year is just, pretend to go for it.
Your third point is find reliable starting pitching is almost a laughable comment when Artie Moreno is still your owner of a team. I feel like for years he's hamstrung his GMs into finding that reliable starting pitching because I think the number that you sent over was 60% of their starting rotation hasn't made a start in the big leagues since 2024.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you view Manoah. Is he like in the rotation? Is he a bullpen guy? Is he someone that has to earn it? But I mean, if you look at Rodriguez and you look at Reed Detmers, who was in the bullpen all last year. I mean, that's kind of it's that those guys have more solidified spots at this point. So and then I think your most reliable guy is probably Yusei Kikuchi. This guy's always made his starts. He's always been available. That's kind of his calling card, and I think it's what makes him very valuable in a lot of ways. But, Soriano is good. He's a really good pitcher. I think he's all-star caliber, if not better than that. But, he's also had the wildly inconsistent. I think the one thing that the Angels have done really well this offseason, they hired Mike Maddox. Now that, what difference that makes in this whole equation is to be seen, I think. But I would give them credit for that hire. I think that is that's a good addition, right? This guy, the Texas Rangers had the best pitching staff in baseball last year. I don't necessarily think that equates to the Angels will have the best pitching staff in baseball, but it's good to have someone with that pedigree at least overseeing some of these younger pitchers and overseeing some of these reclamation projects, because ultimately those who the Angels seem to that they're going to be relying on. They can make more moves. I still think that is very much on the table to add starting pitching, but for right now, what it looks like is a lot of guys that you can't really count on and you just kind of hope will work out.
That's all we got. Sam's off the hot seat. Sam, that was great stuff, man. Thanks for ripping. Although I'm sure you probably have been sitting doing a lot of listening in the courthouse. So
I'm just sitting waiting for the verdict. So
is that that's where you are right now, right? You're sitting waiting for it?
I'm in my car outside the courthouse. Yeah.
Nice.
I was going to do it from the courthouse, and then your producer said that there was a lot of talk back, and I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, probably better to be outside the courthouse anyway.
She's a
for
stickler.
A variety of reasons.
Yeah.
She's tough. Producer lady is tough. She's the best. Sam, you too, man. Great work on this. Really appreciate it. It's been fascinating to read all about what's going on here, and we'll catch up for more Angels talk at some point soon.
Anytime. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks again. That's Sam Blum. You can read him in The Athletic. Let's go in the weeds. Ken Rosenthal's latest notes column has Alex Bregman on the cover. What I'm hearing about the Diamondbacks' interest in Alex Bregman, plus more offseason notes, but let's start with that. There is this slight chance that the Diamondbacks could be involved for Bregman, and hear me out. It's not like the Diamondbacks are rebuilding, guys. They signed Corbin Burns last year, and I know it didn't work out from an injury perspective. He should be back later this season, by the way, and he's pretty damn good. They signed back Merrill Kelly. They do have one of the best offenses in the sport. They have work to do on the pitching staff. But hear me out. The beginning of the paragraph I thought was really good on this topic, Todd Father. I think you'd like the quote, okay? Ken said one rival executive told him about the Diamondbacks, quote, "We have no money. We have no money. We have no money. Oh, Ken Kendrick got aggressive." As in, nah, we're not playing those waters. And then this is one of those owners who I really like. Ken Kendrick will just come out of the blue and say, you know what? Screw it. I'm a gunslinger. I'm going for it. I like this guy. I don't care what my budgeting was proposed to the front office. This is my baby. This is my toy. This is my multi-billion-dollar franchise. I like Alex Bregman. Let's chat with him. It happened last year with Corbin Burns. You start to have a conversation, and Todd Father, Alex Bregman, has the same agent representation as Burns. He lives in a similar area to Corbin, and that is Phoenix, and that is very appealing to people that live in Arizona and can spend the entire year as their home base in Arizona, no spring training, hopping from one home to the next with the family, with the young kiddos, which he also has. It sounds like, according to Ken, a Ketel Marte trade would have to happen. I think that's going to happen anyway. Ketel's a $17 million luxury tax hit. Bregman could get about double that, but the Diamondbacks are about 17 mil under their payroll from last year. So anyway, you add it all up, and it's not the craziest thing ever. Is it likely? No, but I don't think anybody had Corbin Burns as their top spot for, or had Arizona as the top spot for Corbin Burns last year, and look what happened.
That's called leverage. As a player, as an owner, why would you want to leave, man? You could keep your house right here. We'll give you a certain amount of money. Come on down. Your family doesn't have to move. If you're a team in Florida or a team in Arizona, well, there's only one team in Arizona. Yeah, it's about leverage, man. And I think it's a really good possibility. I know you said it's highly unlikely. Why not? Why not? I mean, this would be a great fit for him. They just re-signed Merrill Kelly back. It's a great organization. You don't really hear much bad about him besides not beating the Dodgers and trying to find a way to get over the hump there. I mean, they were a team that were in it a couple of years ago. So this team is not going anywhere. And to them, they have the possibility to pick up an Alex Bregman. Yeah, you better damn well get ready to do that, because I think he, like other people, like Burns, this stabilizes my family. I don't have to move. I don't have to put stuff here. My wife and kids can stay here and enjoy. They don't even have to come on the road anymore. Everything plays a part.
I don't see this happening because I don't think it makes the Diamondbacks better. I think a lot of the stuff about Ketel Marte getting traded could be around, some of the stuff that was going on around the All-Star break and some of the rumblings that you heard from players, like maybe Ketel Marte doesn't quite fit in the clubhouse. You know what fits? Ketel Marte's bat from both sides in that lineup. You're talking about a dude that in the last 3 years has gone OPS plus a 127, 154, 145. 2 MVP seasons. One, he was third. Another one, he was 22nd this past year. Sorry, Alex Bregman, great player. Third base, super important position. You're going to pay Alex Bregman more per year. You're going to get rid of Ketel Marte's bat, and you're not upgrading that with what Bregman brings. And if you're looking for a leader, okay, that's a huge upgrade. But you're talking about a larger contract, most likely, more per year. And to me, I think it's more of just a ploy. Look, I'm always about the players getting all their money. Feels like more of a ploy to make the Red Sox pay the full price that Bregman wants.
Right. You're looking at the market, and I know we've seen reports about the Cubs. I don't know if I'm buying that.
Not at all.
I can buy the Tigers. Remember, I kind of took an L on that one, but I was like, no way the Tigers are going to re-engage with him. But I do think that it's possible after more conversations behind the scenes. I can see the Tigers saying, all right, we're trying again.
And who's the manager?
Let's say the Tigers say, what if the Tigers say $150 million? The Red Sox, obviously, we already talked about collusion today. The Red Sox aren't going to be like, what? I just found out the Tigers only offered $150 million. No, they know exactly what they offered. Mm-hmm. They're going to know exactly what everybody offered. The Red Sox are like, hey, if I got to pay $180 for Bregman, that's cool. But if no one else is even close to $170, we'll offer $165. Like, I don't know where those numbers are, and obviously we'll never know. But you got to get other suitors in. Would he be good on the Diamondbacks? Absolutely. If you're the Diamondbacks and you're getting rid of a $17 million a year player, you better backfill him with a dude that's going to backfill with the exact same offensive production. I know it's a different position, and I know there's leadership stuff with Bregman that is off the charts, but Ketel Marte is going to help any team immensely sliding into a 2, 3, or 4 spot as soon as he goes to another team, and the Diamondbacks would have to backfill that, and that's tough to do.
It is still weird. You look at Marte, and you're like, this is a superstar player, and he's not expensive given the market. Why trade him? I'm with you on that one. I thought it was a great call. You laid it out well. And for Bregman, the best fit is Boston, according to both his interest and the team. It's not like they're the only team involved, like we said, but are they the only team involved at that price range? Hey, things change. It didn't seem like Boston was going to be the spot for Bregman. And I heard with strong confidence that they made a pretty late push and upward movement of their offer. And it took influential Red Sox people outside of the front office to make phone calls to ownership and say, hey, this can get done. This guy wants to be here. You're lowballing compared to the market. Figure it out if you really want him.
Scott,
so that happened.
I have one thing before we get to our next guest.
Yeah.
If you're the Red Sox, who would you rather have put into your lineup right now? Ketel Marte or Alex Bregman?
Into the Red Sox lineup?
Yes. I know. I'm just saying based on why other teams would want either one of these guys. Why the Diamondbacks would. I get the leadership stuff. I'm just saying the Red Sox are more of a nickel and dime team than what they would put themselves out as.
Yeah, see, this is where it gets really hard to value a player that contributes like this. I would say Ketel Marte. Technically, Ketel Marte, player profile-wise, I think on a free agent market would command more money. I mean, and deservedly so. I think he's worth a lot. Bregman's worth a lot too, but yeah, there's the defense involved. There's the impact off the field. They're both great players, but yeah, that's why I look at this. I'm like, damn, any team that's looking at Ketel Marte should go after him and give up the prospects to do it. You sign him into what looks like pretty affordable options for a number of years. That's me. So we'll see. And actually, if you really get yourself in a bad situation again, you want to trade him, I think the 5-10 rights that gives him no trade rights would reset. So then you would have the ability to trade him again in the future. Super fascinating case here. Let's step aside. We've got Braves talk to do with Scott Coleman from Hammer Territory. The top Braves podcast for the Atlanta fans out there. It's called Hammer Territory. It's part of the FT network. It is something that should be on your radar. Scott Coleman and a cast of other hosts are part of that. Scott, great to see you. We get tons of episodes and really good coverage. And also when there's breaking news, they've got it instantly on the deals, the trades, whatever Alex Anthopoulos is doing, since we all find out together via press release. That's how it works with the Braves. Scott, so let's start here. Are Braves fans happy right now with the offseason so far for Atlanta, given that they usually like to do things early? There might not be much left for them to do the rest of the way.
That's a great question. And I would say if you polled 100 Braves fans outside of Truist Park, the answer for the most part would be yes. Now, there's probably fans who have expectations of every big free agent on the market coming to Atlanta, and I don't know how realistic that would be. But if you look at what the Braves have added on the whole, I really like the depth and quantity of additions that they've added so far, and maybe they have one or two more big moves in them.
In what area? What's the one or two big moves that? Because to me, the Kim signing, when I saw it yesterday, we talked about it. It was about solidifying something that they haven't been able to solidify since they've been to the World Series, and that's the defensive shortstop position. The big move comes in a trade because they're getting up close to that soft salary cap, or the big move comes in dumping some type of salary to then bring in a free agent.
So for my money, the big thing that this front office needs to still do is add a starting pitcher to supplement Chris Sale, Spencer Schwallenbach, and Spencer Strider. And it's interesting that other than Dylan Cease, the top of the starting pitching market hasn't really moved a ton yet. I know Merrill Kelly signed, I know Sonny Gray was traded, but the kind of the big four of Valdez, Suarez, King, and Gallen are still out there. And depending on how much money the Braves have to spend, and if they're willing to give up a late first-round draft pick to sign one of those four, I could see one of them being a worthwhile addition to this team to really pour some fuel on this fire to try to get them back to the top of the NL East. This is a franchise, since winning the World Series in 2021, that has won 2 playoff games, which is kind of hard to fathom. I think this roster is in pretty good shape now, but clearly adding a starting pitcher, maybe a little bit more to the bullpen, would be really a big step in the right direction to getting this team as good as it can possibly be for spring training.
Well, let me go along those lines. With who they have the acquisitions and the pickups, are they back to being legit contenders in the East?
I think so. And the reason I've liked the moves of the offseason so far is it is really raising the floor of this roster. Because at the end of last year, as disappointing of a season as it was, the Braves just did not have enough depth and versatility on the roster to navigate 162 games. And of course, they got crushed by injuries, but they also underperformed significantly. So I think, assuming the Braves do add a starting pitcher, I think you can say that this roster is just as good as Phillies or New York. But at the end of the day, they, one, have to hope that the injuries balance out a little bit in their favor and they don't have their entire starting rotation on the 60-day IL as it was at one point last year. And also hope for healthier seasons, get Acuna for 162. Austin Riley has missed significant time the last 2 years with serious injuries. Ozzie Albies has been banged up. Michael Harris has missed time. You have to hope that this team not only performs to the level that we've seen in the past, but also just doesn't get half the team on the injured list, because that's been the case the better part of the last 2 seasons.
2 questions I have for you, kind of interlock. How will Walt Weiss's promotion to be the manager, because he's been on the bench, he's been around this team, they know him. How will this affect this position player group? Because this position player group, you said, they don't have that depth. Yes, there's injuries, but this team's built similarly to the Dodgers in the sense that position players, they want to play every day. All these guys want to play every day, and nobody's looking to say, oh, okay, yeah, we'll let Acuna take DHs, because you still have Sean Murphy, you still have Drake Baldwin. Okay, we'll let Profar, they're putting some pieces around them, but essentially, how's Walt Weiss going to put his fingerprint on this to mitigate injury? Nobody can eliminate injury, but mitigate it, because all these guys want to play 162.
It will be fascinating to see, and that's something that Walt has talked about a few times now since getting the job. I think at the winter meetings, he said that, hey, we want our players to be out there every day, but there's going to come a point in time where we need to get someone off their feet for just one night or utilize the DH. And in recent years, one, I don't know if the Braves necessarily had the bench to accommodate multiple days off for these players. And two, now that Marcell Ozuna has left the organization, probably won't be back, Ozuna was DHing virtually every single day of the season. Now they have an open DH spot, and I think Walt Weiss will use that to his advantage. He can rotate Acuna there. He can rotate Profar there. He can rotate Mike Yastrzemski, one of their offseason additions there. And even if, Austin Riley likes to go out there every single day, maybe they give Riley an afternoon off and keep him in the DH spot just to keep everybody fresh. I imagine that Weiss will be a little more open to rotating his players in and out of the lineup than Brian Snitker was the last handful of years.
How's Mike Yastrzemski going to be used? How is this? Because this is a signing of an older player who has shown when he gets consistent at bats, he's more productive. I feel like you don't sign. It feels like the position and the fit doesn't match the contract. I feel like the contract matches the player that he is, but the fit on the team, how is this contract going to be, how is it going to parallel to his playing time?
So it's funny you say that. Last night, or 2 nights ago rather, when Alex Anthopoulos met with the media to talk about the Ha-Seong Kim signing, somebody asked about Mike Yastrzemski and that role. And Anthopoulos pretty much came out and said that the idea is for, against right-handed pitching, for Yastrzemski to play left field most days and have Jerks and Profar become the DH. I think Yastrzemski's probably a better glove at this point in his career compared to Profar. So you have Yastrzemski in left field, Profar at DH. Against lefties, where Yastrzemski maybe wasn't quite as good the last couple of years, that's where I think the lineup change maybe will come into play a bit more. Anthopoulos suggested they would then have Profar play left field and then have one of a handful of guys DH. It could be Sean Murphy once he recovers from hip surgery. It could be Eli White, who's a speedy outfielder who can run into a home run ball. You could even have Mauricio Dubon, or if you want to play Dubon at second base and have Ozzie Albies DH a night, or Ha-Seong Kim DH for a night. I really think we're going to see a shift as evidence of both what Walt Weiss has said and what the Braves have done with their actions this offseason, that we are going to see more of a versatile lineup construction night in and night out. And hopefully that kind of gets the Braves away from these offensive woes they've had the past couple of years.
Martin Maldonado is now special assistant. Can you talk a little bit about what his role is going to be with the Braves moving forward? Really good baseball player back in the day, played against him a little bit. So talk a little bit about, what his job title is. There's been a lot of special assistants for teams, but do you see an expanded role or anything else?
I thought it was a fascinating addition, and I think that was announced earlier today. So we'll see the next time Alex Anthopoulos meets with media and gets to talk about it a little bit. But I mean, Maldonado has a wealth of baseball knowledge. I mean, there may not be 5 more guys in the game who have been through more than Maldonado. Of course, very smart behind the plate as a catcher. So I really like the addition. I love the idea of Drake Baldwin, as good as he was as the rookie of the year this past season, getting to sit with Maldonado and learn from him, as well as Sean Murphy, who's a really, when healthy, Murphy has been a really capable catcher and is fantastic defensively. And we'll see what other areas Maldonado is going to extend himself to, but a worthwhile addition. I believe that Maldonado has talked publicly about wanting to get into either a front office role or a coaching or even manager role one day. And this felt like a natural progression for him.
All right. Re-signing Raisel Iglesias and then signing Robert Suarez to the bullpen. Suarez, have the Braves mentioned anything about Suarez being more of the pitcher they want him to be as an 8th inning guy like he was when the Padres had Hader and he had that season in 22, but I'm not 100% sure which year that was. Do they see that, or is it more of Raisel's here for a year, then Robert Suarez can move into the closer role? And along with that, is there a chance with the injuries from last year that Reynaldo Lopez is seen as maybe a 7th inning guy, or is that just they're going to keep him starting pitching, ramp up, and see where it goes from there?
So I'm really curious to see how Walt Weiss is going to utilize Iglesias and Suarez, because presumably you could use either one in either the 8th or 9th innings, or if you're playing and you've got 3 really good righties coming up in the 7th inning, I would imagine the Braves would utilize Suarez to then pitch the 7th inning, and then you figure out the 8th and the 9th. That was a fascinating signing for me. I thought once they added Iglesias, even though Anthopoulos had said the bullpen was a priority for them this offseason, I figured they would add a couple of veterans, but I really did not see the Braves going out and getting maybe 2 of the top 5 closers on the market. And not only that, but there was also a report the Braves had a 5-year deal out to Edwin Diaz before he ultimately signed with the Dodgers. So clearly the bullpen has been an area of focus. And that's a great question about Ronaldo Lopez. He, of course, was so effective in the bullpen a couple of years ago, comes to the Braves in 2024, was spectacular in the rotation. I personally, when they added him, I was like, maybe they'll try him in the spring and see if he can start. But he was terrific. He had a 2 ERA. And then last season, unfortunately, Lopez only made 1 start, hurt his shoulder, and missed the remainder of the year. So it's fascinating to see what the Braves are ultimately going to do with Lopez. They could shift him into a bullpen role, and then you think about having Suarez, Iglesias, and Lopez as your 7, 8, 9 with Dylan Lee, who's a really good lefty, mixed in there as well. That could be one of the best bullpens in the game. I think ultimately Lopez's future might be dictated by whether or not the Braves go out and add a starting pitcher in the next couple of weeks.
2 things come to mind here. First off, was there any more to the story about why he ended up going to LA and not taking a 5-year offer? I'm assuming the 5-year offer was larger than the LA offer. If it's 5 years, 65 or whatever, I get it. But why would, I mean, sure, he probably just wanted to go to LA or originally was entertaining the Mets. Did we get any more information about what happened there? He's been pretty vocal, as you've seen, since he left the Mets to go to the Dodgers, but I don't know if anyone asked him that one yet.
I don't know if Diaz has directly addressed it. It was an ESPN report who had the Braves had a 5-year offer out to Diaz. I would assume the AAV was probably not the $23 million that he got from LA. And, if you look at Diaz and his age, maybe he was looking for somewhat of a shorter deal so then he can hit the market one more time for a bigger contract. But that was an eye raiser for sure. I know we talked about it on Hammer Territory on our Braves show. It was like, wow, they apparently, it was just one report, but apparently were very serious about adding Diaz. And that was after they had signed Iglesias and before they signed Suarez. So it feels like they went for Diaz and then kind of struck out and then went for maybe the next best thing on the market and added Robert Suarez, who certainly has a long list on his baseball card as well.
And then, what came to mind, Scott? I listen to the show as frequently as possible. I remember the beginning of this season in 2025, this past year, and the conversations about the bullpen usage in the first week. And sure, you can slice and dice and be critical of Brian Snitker, but the ammo that he had at times was not the best. Who was it? Gosh, with the difficult name to pronounce on the front end, the first name. You'll know who I'm talking about, where there was a lot of debate about how to use him, and I'm just like, man.
Aniel de los Santos was out there. They had Rafael Montero they picked up. They had, Scott, to give you an idea of where this bullpen was, and no disrespect, because this guy's had a hell of a career, but Hector Neris threw a 1-run ball game on opening day in the 7th inning, and it went very poorly. I think you saw 5 batters. The Padres scored 3 runs, and he was out of the game. So that was kind of the state of this bullpen. It was just not good enough. And early on in the season, especially, Atlanta could just not win a close game.
This is a big difference from our conversation right now. Sure, injuries can happen and things can change for guys, but damn, what you just described sounds a lot better than not mid-season, the first week of the season for Atlanta. I think that part's important since the first week was kind of the end of the season. I don't want to go that harsh, but man, they dug up a hole. They never truly climbed out of it. They had their moments in the second half, but anyway, good stuff. That's why you got to listen to the show. They're dialed. So Scott, good catching up, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks guys. Really enjoy the show and happy holidays to you all and your families.
Thank you. Right back at you. Best hat ever. And there's also Hammer Territory hats. We'll be right back. There it is, Hammer Territory, part of the FT network. That's Scott and Brad on there, but there are more. You can listen to your variety of hosts talking about the Braves in depth multiple times per week, both in the off season and then even more episodes during the season. Let's hit BetMGM futures. So, World Series name the finalists. Yankees, Dodgers, plus 1100. This is a category that I struggle with. Help me out. Do you guys feel like there's a spot in this category that you would feel comfortable with? This category is better than it used to be because of the dominance of the Dodgers lately. So if you're one of those people that's like, hey, the Dodgers are just going to go on this dynasty run, then you already accomplished one side of it. And it does give you insurance that the Dodgers are not necessarily winning the World Series every time, but they're at least taking you to the World Series. So even this past season, you would have been a little less nervous if you had the Dodgers matching up against the Blue Jays. You also would have been crazy lucky because or just crazy smart. Not many people had that matchup. But Todd Father, do you like this, or would you rather just focus on something a little more specific, like just one team and then representing the NL or winning the World Series?
I do like it. I like it a lot. This was my pick last year. It didn't come into fruition, but I do. I do like it. I think I would. Any sane person would put a little bit on this, knowing that LA is the best team in the world, and the Yankees always have an opportunity to make a run if their guys are healthy, and they find ways to beat the Blue Jays. So LA, New York, and LA, I could see the Blue Jays getting back in there. Yeah, I mean, there's not many, in my humble opinion, not many American League teams that right now, besides the Blue Jays and Yankees, I see getting to the World Series as of now. Not saying day one I'll change my mind, but yeah, I like this pick a lot.
I mean, I'm going through the rest of them here, and if you're only sticking with the Dodgers, there's a lot of fun numbers here. I just feel like you have Red Sox and Dodgers are coming out at 25-1. I like that number way better. Orioles and Dodgers coming out at 25-1. Like if you're like, okay, I'm stuck on the Dodgers making it, then it's just a matter of who you think's coming out of the American League. And I'm sorry, I'm not taking 11-1 on it being the Yankees. I'm taking, I mean, shoot, you can. Hey, White Sox and Dodgers are 125-1 if you
No,
want the White
thanks.
Sox and Dodgers.
No thanks.
Like,
What about the Mariners?
I think there are teams for.
Where are the Mariners on there?
What's-
Do you have it pulled up?
That's what I'm trying to get down to.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, you could think about Mariners. Hard. I wouldn't touch the Tigers right now because there's still a chance that they trade Scooble. And if they don't, are they pushing chips in? I don't know how comfortable I feel, but for me, Todd Father, I think there's a vibe in Seattle. I mean, I've been on them and then kind of eased off this past season, of course, where they finally did put a lot more together and do the adding that they needed to do at the deadline. I think they kind of learned that it only takes a little bit more aggressiveness to separate yourself from a fringe playoff team and an ALCS appearance. To me, I feel like they've learned a little bit about that. And it doesn't come from the GM. It's coming from the ownership side. They gave him a little more leeway at this trade deadline to pick up two significant impact players. One was much more impactful than the other. Naylor was much better down the stretch and in the playoffs than Gino Suarez, but both were definitely upgrades. So I could see Seattle rolling that out. It's tough to roll out the same names that just went through the slog of a postseason and have them not deal with some fatigue and hangover effect. But I do think Seattle's got something special, and they continue to nurture and take more care of their lineup than they did for a while.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong by that at all. They just got to hit. They've been known for their pitching. They just need more clutch hitting to get over the hump. And you saw a couple guys step up big. Rodriguez stepped up huge in the playoffs and came on strong at the end. Hopefully he keeps that going. And they just got to solidify a few spots, and they'll be right there in the talks for sure.
I'd take the Mariners and Dodgers are at 1750 plus 1750. I still don't like that number, but I like the Mariners and Phillies at 35-1, 3,500. Mariners, Phillies, two teams that didn't quite get the full barrage of it, maybe could be up there. This is This is a fun exercise. I like this, but I need, if I'm picking the two exact teams that are winning the National League and the American League pennant and meeting in the World Series, I need more than 11-1. Sorry, Yankees and Dodgers.
Okay. He's greedy, Todd Father. He doesn't want to 11x his money. But I get what you're saying. I mean, it is
crazy.
It is. It's hard to pick both seats. But if you're looking for something right now, there's a pro football no sweat token. You can check that out. Apply it on any pro football bet. Use the token and add that bet on an event to your bet slip. And then you activate the token, and then you get bonus bets if that bet was made with the token and it loses. So gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And let's get to spreading rumors. Hey, we didn't get to this yet, but I want to. I know you love that, the little PB&J homemade from Todd Father. But let's start with our boy Tyler Glasnow, who we talk to pretty frequently on this show, and his name popped up in some trade rumors. Tyler is a very straight shooter, as you can tell on interviews. I mean, he tells it like it is. That's why he's beloved. Sounds like he had a conversation with the Dodgers and had the result that he was looking for.
Seen some rumors that I would get traded for him, so it's like I don't know what to believe. I've talked to Andrew in our front office, and they're like, "No, you're not going anywhere." So they told me I'm not going to get traded, and I trust them. So that's obviously a nice feeling. I think too, anytime I do get like overwhelmed or stressed with baseball, I think sometimes it's nice to just be able to like zoom out and be like, "Dude, what are you freaking out about? Like you're literally living your dream, playing in Dodger Stadium."
So Tyler Glasnow, and that was on MLB Network Radio, by the way. Shout out to them for the interview. But what do we think of Glasnow just letting everyone know I'm not being traded? Todd Father, things can happen, but I will say there are many organizations that will have a conversation like this and make sure that they create an out if there's a real conversation going on with other teams. Do you feel the same way? There's some organizations or GMs that don't give a fuck, but there are many that say, hey, I'm respectful of a guy that I signed to an extension. He's very vocal in the media. If we feel like there's a little bit of smoke, we'll tell him, hey, dude, there is a chance. So you do with that what you want. I mean, he might tell everyone that, or he might not come out so strongly and say, hey, I'm not getting traded. All of this is to say, I believe Tyler getting the insight from the Dodgers that he is not on the trade block.
I believe that too. And you're only... my trust goes by your word. And, if somebody in the brass and the organization is going to tell me I'm not getting traded, I'm going to take that and be happy with it or sad, whatever that player wanted. But as a player, you have every right to ask and have a conversation with whomever you want in that organization. It's your livelihood. And the business part on the other side too. You can be honest with them. As of right now, you're not getting traded. But you got to take the words and how they were played in context, and you got to go with your gut too as well. So to have a conversation with, the GM or president or whatever it is about your future, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And nobody should take that as a good or bad thing. I mean, for me, it's a good thing knowing that you care and you want to know what's going on, especially a guy that's been playing for a long time. They have every single right to ask that question, and I thought it was fair.
Gone are the days when I first got called up or even first drafted and GMs would walk through or president of baseball operations would walk through a clubhouse and you go, oh, I hope he doesn't talk to me. Did you see? He just talked to Todd. What's happening? Like now they're more accessible. Now they're willing to take a phone call. Obviously, it's a little bit different when you sign a guy to a 4-year, $115 million extension. But let's put it this way. The Dodgers can easily come, today you're not getting traded. If somebody comes calling to the Dodgers and says, we would love to have Tyler Glasnow for the last 2 years of his contract, even though he only made 19 starts, and before that, the year before that, he made 22 starts. Year before that, he made 21 starts. If somebody comes and says, yes, we would like to trade for him and it's the right package, I believe that Andrew Friedman or whoever he called, whether it was Gomes or Andrew Friedman, like they would call him and be like, hey, so-and-so came asking about you. They have no right. They have no reason that they can't that they would need to keep Glasnow. They have an incredible amount of starting pitching. So if somebody comes asking for him, you can still be traded. Just because they said, no, you're not being traded, that's the information they know today. Once all these free agent pitchers are gone, maybe somebody says, we'd love to have Tyler Glasnow for 20 to 25 starts. And I think the Dodgers would do something with us.
I don't know. I think they want to roll with the same thing. I think Glasnow is super valuable and most valuable to the Dodgers because they can handle him with enough care to make sure that he is prepared for the postseason. I know it wasn't done the year before, but they did a nice job on that this year. I mean, this is a guy who, it's no secret, has struggled to stay on the field to give consistent innings. And you know what, Kratz? I think part of learning how to best utilize your assets is that they're not all the same. Tyler Glasnow is not a 200-inning pitcher. If you want him to be a 200-inning pitcher, you're likely going to break the arm before you really need it in October.
If somebody comes asking for your pitcher, who is probably right now your number 4 in a playoff rotation. I'm just saying.
But your 4 is a
Glasnow.
Your 4 pitches like a 1, and you pitch him in
I'm not saying
games.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, in the scope of Tyler Glasnow on another team is untradeable. They will not trade him because he needs to throw significant innings. And I'm not saying he's not going to throw significant innings in the playoffs for your team. You just have to realize on the scale of value, he is number 4. I think they have Blake Snell over him. Obviously, Shohei's over him and Yamamoto. The sum of their parts, they all work together because Yamamoto can't throw but once every 6 days. Shohei, they're gonna make sure he's probably on a 6-day rotation too. So they fit in very well together. I get that. But Tyler Glasnow on his own, out on an island, nobody trades him. Because of where he's at, if somebody comes and says, we really want what you have and are willing to meet the price, prospects, they don't care about cash, but I think he could be available because he is a valuable pitcher that will help a team win playoff games. Because that, to me, that's where his superpower is. You bring that in the playoffs, and you're talking about 10 punchies in a 5-inning outing in the playoffs.
Right, and then you have people bringing up the Scooble aspect. Oh, well, if they trade for him, then maybe you trade Glasnow, or maybe Glasnow even goes back in a deal to Detroit. Here's Schumacher 190. Why trade for Glasnow when Ranger Suarez is a free agent? Their numbers are very comparable.
Just like I said.
More, and I guess they're a little bit similar on not being 200-inning guys. Ranger Suarez has had some injuries. Kratz, you can speak well to him. You watch him a lot when he's pitching for Philly. But, I mean, some teams are going to value Glasnow higher, and some teams are going to value Suarez higher, and they're also going to look at what the rate is. I don't know what Suarez is going to end up getting. He's probably going to get more than what Glasnow is owed the rest of the way.
Yeah, overall, the life of the contract, yeah, but not AAV. He won't get as much as Glasnow's getting. I think he's, 29 million, I think he's getting. I'm not sure that math doesn't math right now. But anyway, probably not AAV, but why wouldn't you? It's exactly the same reason I said. Once these free agent pitchers are gone, teams are going to be like, wait a minute, I still do want to make the playoffs. And there's very few of them that won't have made a move and that want to make the playoffs. But he has value, and some teams might see that value there. I'm not saying like a team that tries to go after Ranger Suarez is going to look up, and a ton of teams analytically don't look necessarily at what Ranger Suarez's production is and what Tyler Glasnow's production is. It's more of the stuff. Whoa, we're enamored by the super shiny car. No matter what the actual speed of the car is, we're enamored by the super shiny car, the fact that Tyler Glasnow could go out and dominate on any given night. And I think Ranger Suarez is a great option also. But once those guys are off the list, now we start thinking about, maybe we need one more guy. Like, do the Orioles, if the price was more palatable, would the Orioles want to trade for him? Would the Orioles want to add him to their rotation? Yes, if they think they're on the doorstep of winning playoff series and not just making playoff series, yes, they would want to trade for him.
You want a shiny car? I'll give you one more for spreading rumors. John Heyman tweeting about Mason Miller. Many teams, including the Mets, are inquiring on Mason Miller, one of the top few arms in MLB and the hardest thrower. The Padres will listen, but they love him as much as anyone and would need to be overwhelmed. Kratz, I'll start with you just because you were on with us yesterday when we spoke to Ken Rosenthal about the Padres. And then Todd Father can piggyback off what you learned from Ken yesterday and combo that with John Heyman's word. I mean, it's really cute and nice to be interested in someone. Is there a world that creates this lane for the Padres to trade him? I mean, like any GM says, blow me away, right? If they get a better offer than what they gave away for Mason Miller last year, plus it enables them to backfill some needs within their current ball club, sure. But I mean, you could see it. Like, you could see the mega package and make it hurt. The Padres did that last year, right? They gave up a prospect who could end up being the top prospect in the sport, within a year or so from now, that the A's will get to enjoy. But I have a hard time seeing this as the move that they make. If they're going to do something, they're going to try and clear payroll. Mason Miller's not making that much money yet.
And that's why, unless you're saying, okay, the Mets will take on Xander Bogaerts and they throw in, they'll take all of Xander's contract and they throw in Mason Miller. Like, that's bizarro world to me. I don't see something like that. We obviously know that Tatis is not available. We know that, or we think that Machado's not available. So do the Mets say, Xander, you're going to go play third base like you did when you were 19 years old and help the Red Sox win a World Series? Or is it something that, of course, everybody wants Mason Miller. Everybody, ever since he started throwing 1 billion miles an hour, everyone said, ooh, they're leaning towards Mason Miller. The Padres got him. The Padres paid a steep price for him, and they're not getting rid of him. It's why they didn't have to go and re-sign Robert Suarez. He's part of this still elite bullpen that they've constructed at a low price. Jeremiah Estrada and Mason Miller are making nothing in closer and setup guy dollars, even if Major League Baseball has colluded. To me, it's Mason Miller, just stop. Of course you're intrigued about him. He throws 104 miles an hour, and there's rumors that he wants to, or they could start. Yes, you want to see a 104-mile-an-hour starter, but stop. The Mets aren't getting him. Padres aren't getting rid of him unless you're taking on the contract that they deem the worst, and I'm saying they would deem the Xander Bogaerts contract as the worst, but I still think he has value to that team.
I don't think a lot of people saw this coming, Todd Father, from last year's trade deadline, that Mason Miller would be dealt. Maybe we were naive because it's the A's, but I don't think a lot of people saw him being traded.
No, I mean, who would trade this guy? He's one of the best closers and relievers in baseball. He throws the hardest. Any team should be on his tail if there's an opportunity to put them on their squad. Get rid of all your prospects. And I said this about Garrett Crochet, last year. Their prospects, get rid of them for a guy like this. Yes, 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 and more yes.
Yes. Leo DeVries this past season at the trade deadline. I mean, the prize, there were others too, but he was the prize part of the package. All right, let's lap. Hey, we do have a sale. The Pittsburgh Penguins are being sold from Fenway Sports Group. Why is this relevant? Well, Fenway Sports Group also owns the Red Sox. So they sold the team to the Hoffmans, whoever they are, for $1.7 billion. This, according to Elliot Friedman. He's a super duper insider. He's like the Ken Rosenthal of the NHL. So $1.7 billion into the portfolio of the group that owns the Red Sox. It does not work where you take that and you just spend it on the major league team, but good for them, making some cash through the process. And now Red Sox fans can point to that number all off season long if they miss out on free agents. That's what happens. Anyway, Kratz, what do you got?
They're going to put it into their soccer team. Sam Blum's doing amazing work. If you want to have a real life saga, I know Sam was just on. Go read all the stuff that he's been following with the trial, the Tyler Skaggs civil suit. And so I had to wear my Angels hat for a guy, Sam, coming on today.
Yeah, Sam's great. Hey, guest list tomorrow. FT insider Robert Murray, also from Fansided, but new to the party as a regular with us. Zach Rosenthal, former Rockies VP and assistant GM of baseball operations, and he was their GM for 5 minutes. And it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts on what he experienced there in Colorado and what he thinks this new group can bring to try and get them into a, I don't know, better situation, for lack of better terms. Also, Paul Hoynes, who's a legend in Cleveland and really amongst many baseball writers. He was honored at the winter meetings, and we'll talk Guardians with a great personality. So it'll be fun. We should have more moves as we're leading up to the holidays. And Todd, Father, we will see you on Friday, right?
See you Friday.
Boom. See you then, bud.
See you.